Hello and welcome to the Lift Up Journeys podcast. My name is Katie and I'm one of the founding members of Lift Up Women in Life Sciences, a community created to connect, champion and inspire women from academia through to C-suite across the life sciences industry. I'm looking forward to sharing with you an inspiring collection of career stories from a group of wonderful women who work in leadership positions across the life sciences industry. I hope by listening to these stories, you will feel inspired in your own career and gain the skills, confidence, and knowledge you need to climb the career ladder and break through the glass ceiling. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Lift Up Journeys podcast. Today, I'm joined by the wonderful Sally Tucker. Sally is the president of Global Services for an ophthalmology focused clinical research organisation called Lexitas. She has dedicated her entire career to the field of ophthalmology that spans more than 20 years now, having initially trained as an optometrist and then going on to conduct a PhD in ophthalmology. Sally describes herself as driven, empathetic, impatient, and compassionate. She has a strong desire to bring everything back to the patient. She wants us to work together to make a positive difference to patients that we all serve and can impact positively. She's married to Paul, has 3 children, I believe Ethan, Rosie, and James, and her dog called Baxter, who's actually here with us in the room today. So it's really lovely to have you here, Sally. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Katie. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. We are really keen to have a talk with you today, mainly through your career journey and touch on some of the milestones and also some of the achievements that you've had along the way. So I think it's always really lovely to be able to start at the beginning of your career. So would be lovely to hear from you as to what your career started in. So maybe what it was in academia that you enjoyed, whether that's a school, and how you obviously then moved into university.
Okay. At school, I was a bit of an all-rounder at school, but I particularly liked science. And I knew that I wanted to go into healthcare. I knew that from a very early age, actually. Probably got interested in the eyes where as early as 7 or 8, when I came home from school and I told my mother that I could see 2 projected images at the when we were singing hymns at school in junior school, and my mother promptly told me to stop fibbing. And then I kept on saying, I really can, Mum, I really can. Eventually, I went to the opticians and I found out that I needed glasses. I knew that I wanted to be in healthcare when I got to the age of 14, when you could start working. I had options of I could go and stack shelves in the local supermarket, or I could go and work in an old people's home and as auxiliary nurse. And I chose the latter. And I really enjoyed that period of time. I felt that, I was getting the work experience that I wanted, obviously earning some money, which when you can first earn some money is great. But I was doing it with patience and feeling that I was making a difference. I then decided that I wanted to continue that journey in healthcare, but I wasn't quite sure whether I wanted to do optometry or pharmacy. So I did some work experience. I went and spent some time with an optometrist, and I also spent some time with pharmacists, both in the on the high street. But I also went to an industrial pharmacy, so with GlaxoSmithKline, and
Oh,
spent
fab.
the day there. And I decided that I liked the patient interaction that you had with optometry, and so that's why I pursued my career in optometry.
Amazing.
I then went on to do my optometry degree at Aston University, which was actually the university that my parents went to. That was not planned, yes, it's where my parents met. And I went to Aston University. I had the best time there. I had a fantastic tutor, Dr. John Wild, who really supported me. The reason for that is I had a car accident in my upper sixth before I went to university. I almost had to have my hand amputated. And
Oh, goodness.
as a result of that, I had to do all of my A levels with my left hand and on a typewriter. We didn't have
Oh,
laptops,
wow. Yeah.
typewriter. And I had to delay the onset of my degree. And Professor Wild was really supportive of that, and really helped me. So that was a fantastic introduction to my journey. I then went on and did my pre-reg year. So you have like a training year after you do your degree, you go and do a training year. I did that back in my hometown. And then I had to do my professional qualifying exams. So I did my professional qualifying exams that I passed first time, which was
Amazing.
a real achievement. And it was then my PhD supervisor, who became my PhD supervisor, said, I think you should do a PhD, Sally. And I hadn't
Wow.
even thought about doing a PhD. And I have to say, my parents did say, "Well, why are you doing this? You could go out and just get a job. You know, we've supported you in your undergraduate studies. Or why do you want to do a PhD?" My response to my parents was twofold. Firstly, I don't want to be sitting in my rocking chair when I'm 80 or 90 years old and think I wish I'd done something.
Yeah.
Um, I'd far prefer to sit there thinking I needn't have done that. And the second thing is, what happens if I'm involved in some kind of groundbreaking research that changes the way patients are treated? Um, and I'm really glad to say that I listened to the advice of Professor Sarah Hoskin, my mentor, who is a dear friend to this day. We remain great friends. And I would say that she remains a wonderful mentor to me.
Oh,
And went on to do my PhD because I see that as a pivotal moment in my career that really scoped my future endeavors. I didn't make groundbreaking research that changed the scope of, but that's what excites me every time I hear about different research projects. Maybe this is the one. Maybe
yeah.
this is going to be groundbreaking.
Totally. And when you do a PhD, it's obviously very different to when you do your undergraduate degree qualification, isn't it? Because you can take everything you learn at undergraduate degree, and for you, I'm assuming the move could have been to go into high street ophthalmology and being able to have days every day with patients, helping them through diagnosis and treatment. But PhD offers you a chance to be involved in some of the research. And were you always quite curious behind the research that was taking place in the ophthalmology world?
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, I was very lucky in that, when you're an optometry graduate doing a PhD, I had a really lovely mix because I was working in the university setting. I was actually a clinical demonstrator, so I actually trained some of the final year students. So that would be sort of my responsibilities. Doing my own research, working in the hospital setting, and then I worked within the high street setting at the weekends.
Oh,
So it meant
perfect.
that I could do a little bit of everything.
Yeah. That's really nice actually. I like the fact that you've been able to kind of learn different areas, and obviously you were doing your PhD for how many years?
4 years. So I
4
started it
years.
in 1998 and finished it in 2002.
Amazing. So the journey for you after completion of the PhD led you into industry, am I right?
It did. So in 2003, I joined Alcon, which is a
Ah,
large ophthalmology company. And it actually brought me back to my hometown because their head office at the time was based in Hemel Hempstead, which is very close to my hometown. And I
amazing.
joined as a product manager. So it was at a time where the it was becoming we were becoming more aware with industry that knowledge and science helps to sell the products that you're selling. So I was asked to come in as an optometrist to help educate our users on the technology that we were using. And it really gave me an insight into the commercial market, which is ultimately we think healthcare is a life cycle. You need commercial to be able to support other aspects. Without a commercially successful product, you don't get the money that you can then put into research and development and clinical and other areas. And so really having that understanding and how the different areas supported one another was something that I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess being with Alcon back then, they were a relatively smaller organization back then, or were they still quite well established in terms of their pipeline?
Yeah, they were still very established. They were large, obviously multinational, global company, but it really did feel at the time like a big family business. And I have friends to this day that I met through my time at Alcon that we still stay in contact
That's wonderful,
with one
isn't it?
another.
Yeah, and that makes the world of difference. Having that feel where you are connected with your colleagues can really help to support your career. And you stayed with Alcon for a number of years in the end, didn't you?
I was with Alcon for 10 years, although I did have a number of different roles within Alcon. So I started off, as I said, as a product manager for the UK. I then was asked to become a trainee manager across the European region, so joining the regional sales and marketing team. And then went on to be back to my love, which is research or clinical, as a surgical medical affairs manager. So managing all of their late phase medical device studies across the European region.
Fantastic. And obviously, that's where you've met so many great colleagues along the way, is working in those different areas. And it's really lovely to hear your story that you're still in touch with them now, because I think we always need to remember that someone's career is such a long journey, but you spend so much time with your colleagues. And if you can really find the values that you all share, it's obviously something you can take. Like you said, once you move on from Alcon, you can still be in touch with them many, many years down the line. And I think that's always really worth highlighting. And great to hear that you were able to progress in your time then. Did you start to take on any leadership responsibilities when you were with Alcom?
Yeah, so my last role within Alcon was as a surgical medical affairs within the surgical medical affairs, and I had a small team that I oversaw oversaw all of the phase 4 trials or post-marketing medical device trials across the European region.
Amazing. What was it like for you to start to become a leader at that point in your career?
I love working with people, so I think that being surrounded by people with potential and empowering them and helping them to develop, and being surrounded by people who are stronger in different areas complement the overall success of the team. And it's something that I recognize that I really enjoyed at that point in my career and continue to embrace, enjoy, and get a huge amount of satisfaction from is working with other people and seeing them develop and
Yeah,
grow.
totally. And obviously you took that through from Alcon into your next stage in your career, didn't you? Talk to us about where you moved from Alcon.
So in 2013, Alcon were acquired by Novartis, and my office moved from being 8 miles from where I lived, in north of the M25, down to Camberley, which is
Ah,
south of the M25, and which meant that on a good day, my commute could be 45, 50, 55 minutes, and on a bad day, it could be 3.5 hours.
wow, it's such a big
So
difference, isn't it?
yeah, and I at the time I had two young children, I think an 8 month old and a 2.5 year
Oh,
old,
wow.
and so I made the leap into setting up my own business consultancy, um, uh, where I supported startup companies with their clinical studies. So I had the opportunity of working with companies such as Avantis, who has gone on to be bought by Alcon, Belkin Vision, that has recently had FDA approval of their DSLT, and a number of other medical device companies. So it was a period of time that I got to continue to work across the European region, working with multiple KOLs, investigators, and investigator sites, and with many different
Wow.
companies.
How did you know it was the right time for you to set up something on your own? Was there any kind of milestone that stuck out for you which made you believe that you should go and set this up?
I think it was serendipity in many ways. I think I was I was in the right place at the right
Yeah.
time, and I had the opportunity to do this with people that I found very inspiring. Um, and again, very much like my PhD. Why
Yeah.
not? I think that we all have a tendency to sit in the world, particularly in the world that we're in today, where, there's lots of social media, there's lots of expectations that, everything should be perfect, that you should have the answer for everything. But the reality is, none of us know what's going to happen. The reality is that nothing ever goes totally to plan, but you will work it out. And every experience you go through, you learn something about yourself that will help you with the next part
Yeah,
of your journey.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's really great to hear that you kind of took that plunge to go out there and try that environment, because you must have enjoyed it. You did it for a number of years, didn't you? And obviously you met some amazing businesses that have gone on to have success. What did you enjoy about being that consultant approach for them, as opposed to what you'd known, which was working within Alcom?
I loved working in that startup environment, the small environment, working with hugely inspirational people, all working for the same cause. I often refer to, you have your personal family and you have your work family. And when you're working in a biotech, ultimately you're all working to support
Yeah,
your baby, as it were, and to help nurture, develop the baby to be a success. um, the fact that you have multiple, you can make a difference together. Your voice can be heard, um, and you're working very closely with the sites and the
yeah,
patients, as well.
that's true.
So
I guess you have a little
yeah.
bit more FaceTime as such with the sites themselves, don't you? And you're probably a little bit closer to the patients too, because of the work that you're doing. You're having a little bit more of a direct impact. So I can totally see why that felt like a really good move for you. And did that also allow you to balance your family life as well? Because as you said, you had two quite young children at that time.
Balance is interesting question. Have I ever truly found balance? And I'm not sure that I have the answer to that. However, during that time, what I realized is that I made a far better mum being a working mum. So, and I think I struggled with that up to that point. I think there were times when, you know, I questioned whether I should be working. I wasn't like, I wasn't the mum that was at the school gate every day. I wasn't the mum that could be at every single
Yeah,
event. I was working. I was having to segregate my life into my work family and my personal family. Um, and I think with that, I think the term is mother's guilt. People talk about mother's guilt. You have that.
yeah,
You question yourself. Should I be doing something differently? But actually, it made me realize I think I'm better as a mother doing this, and I'm able to provide my children with a work ethic. They see how hard I work. They see how much I value my work and how I am benefiting them as individuals in doing the work that I do. Um, Also, as I did described myself in the introduction, I'm pretty impatient. I like to get things done, and I think that realization that perhaps I am better working because I'm children do test your patience at times, as we all know. So yeah, it was
Totally.
certainly a time of where I learned more about myself and became more accepting of myself.
Yeah, good for you. That's really, really lovely to hear. And you'd obviously founded your own business at this point in your career. So being able to balance, like you say, that with being a mother, it's definitely tough, but I'm sure it was worth it from all the lessons that you gained along the way. The next step in your career journey was an interesting one, wasn't it? Because you moved on from being a founder of your own company
I
and you joined a new
moved back
business.
into industry, and I moved back to join a company called Glaukos. And the reason for that was, up until that point, my career had been very medical device heavy. So I'd worked with lots of medical devices. It was at a time that they were developing their clinical strategy for the iDose, which is classed as a pharmaceutical product. And as such, I saw this as a way of developing, myself, my knowledge within the pharmaceutical arena as well. So I moved to Glaukos. I was there for around 18 months. There was a change in the clinical strategy during my time there. And as a result, I then moved on to join the clinical research organization, so the service industry.
Yeah, amazing. That's a really interesting pivot too, to be able to come into the service industry from med device and pharma. And was it
I did.
Aura that you
I
joined
did. I
in the
joined
services
Aura,
side?
and yeah, I'm very grateful for the time that I had at Aura. I assisted them in developing their European team. So when I joined, it comprised of, I think, 3 individuals within the European team, and by the time I left, it was around 30 individuals that we had established, working over 24 countries. And what Aura gave me was the ability to work again with some hugely intelligent and scientific minded people across, from the front of the eye to the back of the eye, working across multiple clinical phases, from preclinical to post marketing medical device and phase 4 studies, in multiple different subspecialities. So it really gave me a fantastic insight to the service industry, and what I truly believe in still, which is the importance of working with therapeutically focused clinical providers when conducting clinical trials, because they have a greater understanding of the sites, of the patient journey, and of the products themselves.
Absolutely. And that must have been really important for you, having qualified from a patient perspective as well, knowing what a patient would need, having that specific therapeutic understanding from all of your ophthalmology background. I can totally see why it stood out to you. So, were Aura a business who's solely focused
Yes,
in
they
the
are.
ophthalmology space? Yeah, that's wonderful. That's really great. I can see why that appealed to you. What were some of the lessons that you learned in your time at Aura? Is there anything in particular that stood out to you that was a big lesson, whether that's in terms of leadership or maybe just being on the services side of the
I
industry?
think it was incredibly insightful joining the service industry and seeing the challenges that the service industry have. Um, I think that was a big learning curve for me to understand from that side. Um, I think that gosh, the lessons that I've learned during my time there, I mean, there were multiple lessons. I think that, you know, the importance of listening, uh, the importance
Yeah.
of your team. And like I said this
Yeah.
earlier, you're only as good as the team that surrounds you. So empowering that team, making them feel heard, ensuring that you're really ensuring their success, because their success is your success. Um, I think as well, when you're working in the service industry and you're working with sponsors and sites, and as well, I think that actually being a parent helps in many ways, because I think that we can all get blinkered in what we're doing. So again, kind of understanding that there are always two sides to every story, and making sure that you take the time to listen to both sides, making sure that you're being empathetic and compassionate with the needs of others that you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big lesson that you learn organically, isn't it, from the people that you surround yourself with. And I love the success that's due to your team. I think it's really empowering, isn't it, to be able to coach and develop others, and in turn, their success will be your success. And talk to us a little bit about that growth journey that you and the Aura team went on, because your headcount obviously increased significantly in the
Yeah,
time that you were there.
absolutely. Well, we developed the business unit really from scratch, and interacted with my US colleagues. Again, that ensuring that empathy through education of helping to explain the differences between the clinical trial landscape in the US versus Europe versus elsewhere. It was a We had lots to accomplish, and we did that over a short period of time, with some fantastic people, both close by and across the pond, as it were.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed those interactions.
Brilliant. And obviously, that was your first role in a
It is.
services organization, so in the contract side of things. And you obviously have made the move recently to join the Lexitas team, I think about a year or so ago. Tell us a little bit about your transition into Lexitas, what it was that appealed about
So
them
I
as a
suppose
business.
Lexitas, again, it's a ophthalmology focused CRO. It's something that I believe in, that I think that the industry needs, and it means that you can optimize the overall delivery of the clinical trials that you're working with. It's when you work with a therapeutically specialized CRO. But they're smaller. They were a smaller organization at an earlier point in their development. That's something that I'm very good at, is developing teams, supporting in the growth of an organization, and it's something that I was interested in doing again.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And how have things been for you in the year that you've been here so far?
So lots to do. One of the things that I'm involved with, which is quite different actually, is the reading center. So at Lexitas, we have a reading center, which is something that we didn't have at Aura. And being involved with the reading center and developing that team, we're about 18 months, 2 years into the development of that offering, working with the individuals that work there, seeing the processes develop, and working with fascinating technology. We hear about lots of AI within the field of health science, and how AI and different algorithms can support in different areas of the work that we work in, different areas where we work, and I've really enjoyed being a part of that.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. It sounds really exciting. It sounds like something that you're super passionate about too. And do you feel your career has obviously been pivoted to the ophthalmology space because of how much you enjoyed it back in your academia and your university days? Because staying in one therapeutic area is obviously such a big journey and a niche journey in itself. Do you attribute a lot of your enjoyment to what you studied when you were much younger?
I think I've always, like I said, I was always interested in ophthalmology. I had eye conditions myself. My grandfather went
Yeah.
blind from type 2 diabetes. My grandmother had glaucoma.
Yeah.
It's something that I find very emotive. I think that vision is one of the is all of our senses are incredibly important to us. Um, And I say that because I actually lost some of my hearing during COVID in my right ear. And I would have always said that, oh, yeah, nothing's as bad as losing your sight. But any loss of any sense actually has a huge impact on people. So I think that I've always had that attachment with ophthalmology because I've had vision problems myself, and I have people that are close to me that have had vision problems. Um, and and I think as well, going on to see how impactful your involvement can be and what a difference it makes to patients when you can help them with their vision is
Yeah.
incredibly motivating. It's something that makes you want to do more of.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can resonate with that entirely. It's being part of a team where you can have solutions, you can provide that support. It's about really looking after each other,
Yeah.
isn't it? So I can resonate with that fully. And thank you so much for talking us through your journey today, Sally. It's been really inspiring to hear how you've progressed and obviously how your career has naturally progressed as well. So it's been great to cover some of these milestones. Obviously, we were really excited to have you as part of our Lift Up community. I think we're definitely aligned in terms of supporting women who work in the life sciences sector, but also those who maybe feel inspired to come and work into the life sciences sector. So would love to finish today maybe taking a little bit of advice from you. So if you were to able to give any advice to perhaps younger women thinking about moving into this sector, what would you say to them?
What would I say? I'd say, well, there's quite a few things that I'd say. I'd say, believe in yourself. I'd also say you are enough, uh, that your views are important. And then I'd also say, don't be scared. I think that there's, a huge amount of pressure on young people. What if I make a mistake? And this goes back to what I said earlier. There is no crystal ball. You don't know, but there is no such thing as a mistake. Every journey, every path, every direction that you take will teach you more about yourself. And even at the time, if you think, oh, perhaps this wasn't the right move, actually, the positives that you take away from that is, okay, well, you've learned what you don't want to do. So don't be
Yeah.
scared. And like I did when I took the plunge to do my PhD, don't be the person that sits in your rocking chair when you're 80 and think, I wish I'd done that.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to think back and say, "Oh, what if I'd have done this? What could have been?" I think definitely we need to focus on taking risks and putting yourself outside your comfort zone a little bit too. Have you typically found in your career, Sally, that you've been able to work with women in the industry? Have you had any particular experiences of maybe being the only woman in a team?
I think that I've worked in different environments where they've been more women heavy and more men heavy. I'm very lucky to have had a number of different women mentors and men mentors within my career who have been incredibly supportive of me and my journey. Um, I think that as I have, you know, been promoted and got into higher positions. I've certainly been in companies where I have had more male peers than female peers. As it turns out, where I am right now, actually, the reverse is true. So
Yeah, I've heard you obviously have a lot of women in your current leadership team, which is really, really lovely to see. And I think we wanted to be able to join forces to be able to really highlight some of the wonderful women like yourself who work in the industry, who've progressed in the industry, to really now be able to create some role models for those to look up to and feel inspired by. Do you do much work in terms of mentoring and coaching yourself now?
I love mentoring and coaching individuals with, to support them and empower them. And I'm actually a strong believer in coaching yourself. So
Yeah,
I think that that's something that, we talk about going to the gym and how important it is to keep fit. And I think it's really important to keep mentally fit as well. And having, somebody, a coach that you can talk to on a regular basis, is something that can be very beneficial as well. It means that you have, um, an independent individual that can listen and can help you to scope things out within your
yeah.
your head.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think we all openly talk about getting physically fitter, don't we? But we don't often talk about the importance of mental fitness and improving our performance there. So yeah, that's really great advice to think of it that way. And it's lovely to hear that you obviously are involved in coaching and mentoring others as well. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to really work with us today and share your career story. We are so grateful to have you as part of our wider Lift Up community. And I'm sure that you'd be happy for any of our listeners to reach out and connect with you if they'd be open to maybe growing their own network or even
Absolutely.
hearing some more advice from you.
Yeah, goes without saying. Please do reach out, and I'd love to be connected to you and support whoever I can. Ultimately, we can do more together than alone.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And thank you, Sally, for your time today. It's been a real pleasure to talk through your career story. I hope you enjoyed hearing how far you've come as well.
I did indeed. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I wish you a very lovely weekend.
Thank you ever so much for having us, Sally. I'll speak to you soon.